Welcome to Drive, the podcast for truck drivers who are looking to enhance their lives both on and off the road, and for carriers looking for that perfect fit trucker. I'm Zac Ells.
And I'm Chelsea Faulkner.
And we're here to bring you conversations that will help keep you moving forward in every area of your life. Whether you're a seasoned trucker or just starting out in the industry, this is a show for you. It's a brand new year. We have a whole bunch of different stuff going on. It's exciting. And it's the end of the fourth season. So today we've been talking to Jeff Davison, the CEO of FreightMate, which is a freight management solution that harnesses the power of AI to streamline and enhance daily operations for owner-operators and fleet managers. Jeff's a success story. He started out on the road as a trucker, wanted to create a better solution for managing his daily tasks, and bam, here we are. FreightMate, one of the best products that's out there if you want to get your trucking company down to a science, I think is the best way to probably put it, because it's going to be efficient. It's going to be safe because you're not worried about all the different things that happen. So I was listening to the Truck and Hustle podcast that you had done, and like talking about some of the different things that FreightMate, and I'm just like, wow, this technology seems like it's crazy. So I was super excited to talk to you about that kind of stuff, because trucking, what we do, Chelsea and I, we've done a lot of recruiting and hiring, and we work with a lot of truck drivers. So we might have worked with about 800 last year. So we talked to a lot of people, and so it's kind of cool to see different people in different areas, because we wouldn't necessarily know that FreightMate was a thing because we're not a carrier.
Yeah, I think that's with who you're working with, or kind of maybe who leaves from being a company driver to going out on their own. Like, those are the people we're really trying to support. If you listen to the Truck and Hustle podcast, hopefully you got past like the first 30 minutes of my livestock background, which I'm sure seems to be enlightening for everybody.
I've grown up around livestock. So you're in here, you're talking all of the different things that you've hauled and what you've done. And I'm like, you're speaking my language. I know where this comes from.
We might be getting back into that world with FreightMate. My uncle's in that world, and so him and I have been talking about a lot of things, and we're doing some test pilot stuff starting in February. So who knows? We may be branching more into the livestock world than I even assumed we could, because usually that world wasn't open really to technology. It was kind of the wild, wild west in a world of wild, wild west in trucking. And it sounds like maybe there is, or you want there to do some more things technologically, and we're all for it.
Well, and absolutely. It only makes sense because you've got the combines and all of the agricultural stuff on the crop side of life where everything's already been automated and they're using all of this different technology. Why would you not carry that over into the agricultural side when they're hauling livestock and when they're hauling all of the materials to build for the livestock? I mean, it only makes sense at this point.
I just remember when I was in that 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it was like, you got a slip of paper, you got an address, and you showed up. Like, you went and scaled it, but you were full and you knew how much weight was on there, and off you went. So it was really interesting, kind of full circle. But yeah, a lot of the document management stuff, a lot of the automation pieces, being able to set up places and kind of streamline where they need to go, when they need to be there, who's doing it. A lot of those just little pieces. It's like, I think from a farmer standpoint, that'd be just so much peace of mind as to, here's the company, here's the driver, I know where it is. If they talk about paperwork getting lost and trucks getting lost and everything else, and it's like, we can help with all those things. So hopefully we'll find some synergies there throughout 2024. And that's kind of random that we're just walking into this year.
I think a lot of farmers probably have trust issues with technology and really just having to convert over to doing something that they aren't probably used to. Like, I know when they started first putting cameras in trucks, a lot of the seasoned vet drivers were kind of, I remember some of them, you would leave places, and I'm sure with technology and farming, there's some similar thought processes on just, can we trust where this is going? How do we know it's going to work right? Like, so many different questions. For you, like having a background in it, I'm sure that's super helpful for them to feel credible and trust with your brand, right? Your products.
We would hope so. I mean, I come from a family of farmers. My grandfather was a farmer. I have two uncles that still farm in Iowa, and they have all the technology now. And I think in a little bit in that world, it's like, if you're going to get the high-end stuff, they start driving themselves. Like, that was just kind of the thing, is if you want all these advantages that the high-end John Deeres have, it's like, well, here it goes. It's going to drive itself. It's going to tell you everything you need to know. And I think my uncle spend more time looking at iPads and information than they do looking at the rows, because the rows is like the easy part for that machine right now. Now it's all about depth of the seed and what kind of water levels the dirt has and all this other stuff to make sure you put the right, like, just the analytics that's going into it. That's all they're studying. Counting rows is a thing of the 1980s.
Absolutely. And as you guys start branching back into this, I know I keep hearing you say that your uncles are still in farming. If they have a couple of baby pigs they want to drop off, I'll absolutely drop my address. Just want to bring them my way.
They are not in animals. I did have an uncle that was in it when my grandfather was still running the farm before he took it over. And he did livestock. And my grandfather did it for a while too. I think it's just being solo like they were, it just became too much.
Yeah, that industry's probably changed considerably in the last, 20, 30 years from what it used to be. Tell us, Jeff, a little, for some of the listeners that haven't heard the podcast, a little bit about your background and how you got into the trucking industry.
Yeah, so got introduced into the trucking industry in the profession of it in 2012 or so. I was working with a family member in kind of an ag construction business in Iowa, and we were building barns for cattle and things along those lines. We found that there was some remodel work we were doing for a customer that had pigs they needed moved. So my uncle, who had the company, also randomly had a few trucks and trailers sitting around. And so we just started basically a trucking business too. So like, all right, we'll remodel your barn. We'll also start hauling your pigs. And so it just kind of grew from there. And then in about 2014, then I moved off of my own, moved into my own over-the-road world. So I've done everything from flatbed, step deck, dry van, reefer, intermodal stuff, worked for the railroads, out of the shipping yards, pretty much all the classic things that you can think of outside of like major government contracts or running absurdly large specialized equipment, things on those pieces. I've done basically all of it. So it's kind of been an eye-opener to see all the different processes, see all the different regulations around certain things and kind of learning the ropes, but it's opened my eyes to a lot of things. And so about 2 years ago, then I was really in a spot where I was trying to figure out a way to simplify my business. Had about a half dozen trucks and drivers, and it was just becoming one of those things as a solo person, trying to manage all those phone calls, paperwork, the emails, trying to figure out a better way to do it. I guess I had a trip 10 years earlier, what I was thinking about when I first got started, going, why can I fly around the world, keep all my hotels, rental cars, and everything in one spot? But yet, when it comes to my trucking business, I have to be tied to my computer to make it work and have a cell phone attached to my ear. And so I had come up with this theory, this idea back in like 2014, 2015. I really started diving into it with my father and a business partner of his. We're like really talking about what kind of this could be. And then looking in the industry going, we don't want to create just an operational to organizational tool. We want to create an automation tool, because there's so many things that happen from the cab out that would support the administrative work in the office, that would reduce a lot of expense on the ownership side. But then also a lot of things that happen in the cab that would be, once they're done once, then the driver doesn't have to do it again. If you send a text message with a load and then you keep texting them, hey, call this person, hey, check out for this, hey, here's your next load, that text message is going to keep sliding down. There's a good chance you've sent 5 to 7, 10 text messages to a driver and they haven't finished the load they're on with that certain address. So they're scrolling, they're searching. It's just a lot of annoyances, chat messages, same thing. And so our thing was like, how can I keep what they're doing front and center? How can I queue them up for what's coming next and keep it nice, simple, and organized? So that way every load looks the same. Every load acts the same. And every time they do something, they don't have to do it twice. I think that was the biggest thing, is we really wanted to come at it from a driver standpoint. We wanted to really be driver focused. And as we built out features and things, we learned from our customers. And then we also made sure that, okay, we're sitting in the cab. This is the way the process works. Luckily, having 12 years of non-driving, but plenty of exposure in that world, going, okay, here's what they're being asked to do. Here's what they need to do. How can we build this to make it easy for them?
Well, and of course, the client's paying the bill, the one that's running the trucking company, the one. So, of course, it seems to be generated towards that. So it's kind of, I thought it was really cool seeing FreightMate and noticing that it was driver centric, because that seems to be uncommon.
Yeah, I think that seems to be what we've found too. Because I mean, as a carrier, I was looking for solutions for years, and I tried different things, and just the manual aspects of everything was what made it so difficult for me to really stick with one. It was supporting me and keeping me organized potentially, but it wasn't supporting me and doing things for me. And so trying to find things, I couldn't. So then we're like, well, let's just build it and let's see what we can do. And so we come at it from every time we're going to build a new feature or a whole new process in the system, we sit there and go, okay, what are we going to do? We automate it as far down the path as we can. Sometimes that takes stages just in the world of technology, but we don't ever build a feature that's just going to sit. Something's going to be added. It's going to add value because it's going to cause at least a reaction somewhere else down the line to reduce the manual work that's going to go into it. And then everything has got to be driver focused, because if the driver doesn't like it, it doesn't matter what the admin thinks. It just doesn't work. And I do think that the people that are doing a lot of the heavy lifting every day should be at least a part of the conversation.
Absolutely. So I'm hearing that FreightMate, it really was a passion project. So it was something that you saw a need in the market. You knew what needed to be tackled in order to make everybody's life easier, and you jumped in and did it with both feet. Now, knowing that, what would you say is your favorite feature that you've added?
Oh, that's good. I think it's still the automation piece. I think it's our bread and butter. It's the piece that, you forward rate confirmation into our email and it takes 2 minutes or less, and all that detail is right there in your phone. Or right there in the app for you to dispatch your driver, or if you're a solo driver, it's right there in your phone, queued up and ready to go. To think that somebody would receive that email with all that information, they would be scrolling that rate confirmation all the varieties. There's thousands of different types that we've seen so far. And to be able to take all of those and say, hey, we're going to pull all your addresses. We're going to pull out all your pickup numbers. You're not going to search and try and find and keep track of is huge. And so at our current moment, I think that's still my favorite feature, just because to me, that's an immeasurable thing on both ends. From an admin side, having to try and search to find a text, call, email, whatever. And then from a driver side, just knowing, click open, there's my address, there's my pickup numbers. I know where to go. I know when to be there. I don't got to search, find, or keep track of.
That's crazy. For anybody that's ever seen a rate confirmation, you know what I mean? Bills of lading and things like that, you can get lost a mile. You're looking at it. Sometimes there's different addresses. You could have a warehouse in a location that's different than where it came from. So, that right there, that sounds like probably the most efficient thing that FreightMate has done also, right?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, has been simplifying that on both ends. And then now, as we've grown, it's like doing all the things that are trip specific. So document managing, be able to upload and tag documents that are specific to that load. So everything's in one pile or trip pack, or however you kind of want to look at it, which is kind of the process that's been there forever, right? People went into that trip pack thing when you didn't have to send bill ladings anymore, and then you had to go to a truck stop and fax them in theoretically through TransFlow or whatever it may be. It's like we've done that, but now it's all digital. And by the end of this month, we'll be able to send all those documents right back to your shipper, or right back to your broker, right out of our app. You don't have to push it right in because we've got the customer info. We'll just be able to push the button and say, yes, send documents, and it'll have a standardized email ready for you. You won't need to save it, download it. You can modify it if you want to, but it'll be ready to send right there for you. So we'll be able to send all that out. And then most exciting feature, going back to what I like the most, we're about to roll out our invoicing feature. So you'll be able to invoice and increase your cash flow exponentially here by the end of this month. And so that's going to be huge, because when we talk about, they say on average takes about 7 days for bill of ladings to get turned in from truck drivers. And it's like we're going to be able to turn bill of ladings in 5 minutes from the time a load is complete and that signed bill of lading is in your hands, because you can scan it in our app, pull it up, push it. If you're an owner operator, push the invoice. You don't need to edit the invoice in any way and click send. So what takes 7 days on average could take 5 minutes on average with us.
That's huge. That's absolutely huge. And it sounds like it's something that's going to save everybody time. Now, as far as safety goes, safety is huge on the road. It's one of those keywords that we hear year after year after year, especially in the transportation industry. What would you say that FreightMate's doing in order to help keep our drivers safe when they're out on the roads?
I think it's just knowing where to go, knowing where to be. I think it's one of the things you can do a lot of pre-planning. When you can click a button and see where you need to be, you can plan on what your route needs to be, staying on the correct road, staying out of certain areas. So it's one of those things where I think that's a side benefit to how we have developed this, to know where to go and those kinds of things. But obviously, all the different safety things out there in the world, we are all for all the things we can do to keep drivers safe in all the places they have to go and areas they have to operate, because that's just part of the job.
I got into logistics in 2009, and thinking about how things were being done 15 years ago. How did we even do it then? We had Blackberries. We were like doing rate confirmations, and you could like maybe look online, maybe on a Blackberry. And I don't even know how they did it 20 years before that.
The idea that, like the dad started as a screen in the truck stop, and I can just picture, 20 people all sitting there looking at a screen that's the size of half of our computer screens now, trying to read a phone number of who they wanted to require to the pay phone and call. The whole idea of it just is so funny compared to what we have now, where the amount of information and access you have at your fingertips 24/7 is crazy. But when I got in it, even 12 years ago, it was still driver in the office, hand them a piece of paper. We could text them and stuff, and we did some of that. But it was a lot of times people started from the office and went out. And so paper was handed out, directions, what they needed to know. And that was it.
I can only imagine all the headaches that caused. Now, I heard you talk about the fact that you guys are launching the invoicing. Talk to me a little bit about what you guys have rolling out towards the end of Q1 and into Q2.
Yeah. So like I said, document delivery and then the invoicing piece. Some of the other things we're working on is driver settlements and payroll. So We're going to be really supporting that process in the standpoint of we've had a lot of our clients and a lot of potential clients we've talked to talking about payroll and how much of a bear it is on a weekly basis for a lot of people, as this is still kind of a weekly paid business, and just how to pull down all the loads that people did. And since we obviously have all of the information, we have all the rates that people are getting paid, the loads that have been completed, who did it, when, all that, we'll be able to do a lot of reporting around payroll. And then we're going to be instituting how they get paid. So you'll be able to get, if someone gets paid 75% of what the load pays, for instance, when they make $1,000 on a load, they'll get paid $750. We'll have a report that can show that. So we're not going to go all the way into your taxes and be your ADP. That's just not ever going to be our world, at least not in the very near future. But it's one of those things where I think that's going to be a huge value add for admins, especially they're doing payroll every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever it may be, to just pull a report and then be able to take that top line number and put it into your system that's going to pay people that's already there, compared to, okay, they ran these trying to pull all this stuff down that may be as much we see on paper or on the desk, trying to look at what's been done. So that's a big one. We have phone tracking with geofencing to tag when people arrive and when they leave, which will be helpful. Right now, it's a manual, just click of a button to keep tracking available, but we'll have loads that they'll tell you when they showed up, when they leave. It'll also then clarify when they click the button. And so that way you can start doing some detention tracking and being able to do that no matter the customer, which is huge. So much money is lost in non-claim detention or non-paid to detention every year. And so, we expect to see 4, 5, 6 ROI on what people pay us just in detention approvals, because you'll be able to prove it out. Here it is. Here's where I was. Here's my 2 levels of proof for that. Let's get this started. And then a lot of the other stuff we have is just a lot of integration stuff. We're integrating with factoring partners to help increase cash flow as well. So not only can you send the invoice, you can actually upload the invoice. We've got partners that are helping with BI deep dives into your business expenses and your overall business health to be able to help with that. We launched that this month, which is huge. So a lot of things going on, a lot of things to look forward to. I think I see currently about 27 projects on a roadmap just through May.
Sounds like our current projects.
It's the inevitable busyness of what keeps you going, right? If you didn't have these things, but like from a driver's perspective, so they understand, like a lot of trucking companies, it's hard to track a lot of that stuff. This technology is going to be able to tell how to forecast so that it is still a weekly business, right? Because payroll, it's funny how you spend almost half the week trying to get payroll right for Friday. And how many times Friday comes around and the poor people in the office that are doing the best that they can to make sure drivers get paid right, they're still getting, those lovely phone calls between midnight and 6 a.m. And, you're like, the bank doesn't open till 9. But having this technology in place, they're not going to have to worry about as much of the drivers proving it, as much as they can see that it's in the works. They see that the load was delivered. They can see that the actual activity happened so that the driver's pay can be way more correct, I guess. I don't even know if that's the way it's said, but the pay, it's going to be a higher level of efficiency, right?
Yeah, I think that's just it. It's going to be efficiency. I would say probably the correctness, just because I know a lot of payroll officials, they do a great job. But I think just being able to go, hey, what takes you 3 hours for your fleet of 20 is now going to take you 30 minutes, because we're going to give you the top line stuff and then all the things you have to do after the fact. The people where it's simple, you get paid X when you do Y. And then it's like, it may take us 5 minutes, because then all you're doing is just transferring that information in. And then we hope someday that once we get that whole thing figured out, then we can actually start just dumping it in for you and letting you check, review, and submit. That would be the ultimate goal. And that's kind of our ultimate goal of everything, is to go that far when we have the partners.
And that helps retention. The hardest thing that trucking companies go through is recruiting, hiring, and retaining. One of the number one things that drivers specifically run into is having their pay done correctly and done on time. And they feel like that you're managing their paycheck just as much as you're probably managing your own. And a lot of drivers feel disconnected in that realm. So I feel like this FreightMate technology would be super beneficial for even the trust amongst the carriers to the drivers and the owner operators, and ultimately the industry as a whole, because sometimes it can feel very Wild Westish, right? From a financial perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I think clarity is what everybody wants. Everybody wants to know where they're at. And I think with FreightMate, you'll be able to know, if you want to share the access, if you're an admin side, you'll have the ability to, is like, you can track your paycheck. Here's what I've done so far this week. Here's where I'm at. Getting to those levels of things, going, okay, hey, I need to work harder, or hey, I've been thinking about taking a week off. I think I can do it here soon, because I'll know what I'm making, what I've made. It'll be clearer. Money drives everything in this industry, as we know, from the top down. And so being able to be just clear and honest about it is huge.
I'm hearing that you guys have these 27 projects that are coming up in different ways that you can make FreightMate better for the audience. How are you guys keeping your ear to the ground to hear back from the truck drivers on what they need and what they want in order to make those developments happen as you guys continue to progress?
So I mean, it's constant communication with our customers. What do you need? What can help you? It's paying attention kind of to what's going on in the industry as well. Just kind of listening to the news, listening to kind of all the different things people are talking about as well, especially in the industry, because sometimes they get to macroeconomics in the news and in general, whatever is going on, like with the Suez Canal and everything, whatever it was back a few years ago, it's like, well, that doesn't really affect us. Like it may affect somebody with a large enterprise fleet that does a lot out of different ports and their volume is going to change, but it doesn't materially affect who we work with. And so really trying to understand what's out there that's going to materially affect the people that we work with and are really there to support is really what we're doing. And I mean, we get a lot of people too that are just interested in knowing more about us. They may not always be willing to sign up that day. They're calling in with interest or scheduling a demo or, watching things. And so it's the questions they ask. We catalog all those things to really take into account what are people looking for. And in general, that's where our roadmap has taken us. I mean, payroll wasn't as high as importance to us initially, even though in a two-step process, the first isn't that much of a development. And so it's like, okay, that's that important to make that easier for fleets. And that's something they see as valuable. So that's something we're going to get done and we're going to get it done quick.
And that AI integration, as far as a topic, also that is super helpful in even learning what people are looking at, what drivers are looking for. I guess staying up to speed on what the market is calling for and them understanding what's actually out there. Because sometimes a market can shift and change. I think 2023 was a big example of that. If you weren't in a dedicated position from a freight market, you were going to be up and down pretty heavily. And so like drivers understanding where the market is, I'm sure is an invaluable tool for them having that peace of mind, because you're out the road 6 to 8 weeks or longer. There's a lot that you're not seeing day to day with at home and the family and the news, things like that, right?
Absolutely. I think that's where some of the data we'll be able to provide as well as to what you're doing. You'll be able to kind of benchmark against yourself. Because I think sometimes we also all get lost a little bit into what other people are doing and kind of what you hear, what you see. People are saying they need $4 or $5 a mile to live. And other times it's like when you look at your numbers, no, 250 to 260 will more than get you there. And so I think it's a lot of it's being able to stay up with what's going on in the industry, being able to have the knowledge of what's coming, and then also just knowing what you're doing and how you benchmark against yourself. Because there's a little bit of that game that you can play of here's what I did last week, here's what I've done for the first quarter, here's what I want for the next quarter. And the longer you're with us, the more data you'll have, and then more data you'll be able to see of like, okay, here's what I did last January, or here's what I did over the last 3 Januaries. And so you'll know like, hey, I shouldn't plan for much because January may be a slow month for me in my portion of the industry versus, hey, this is a really good time for me because of X, Y, or Z. And so I think that's really where a lot of the AI insights and the information we have will be.
I think it'd be super cool from a driver's perspective is if they were taking a load from like Chicago down to Atlanta, they would be able to be told from an AI tool or something like, hey, listen, your layover is going to be in this general range. If you're trying to save money, you could get some food here. This is what the cost of fuel is going to be over here. There's some things in there that seem like they'd be just a no-brainer to toss out, and not to give away anything that you might be working on, but that sounds super cool. Like, I don't know. That gets me going. Like, I'm excited about that.
One of the integrations we're working on that'll be really, really interesting, hopefully out by the truck show in March when we're there, we'll be able to really put that out there is that same thing, where to go, where to park, how to get there. A lot of driver insights that can really save time, save money, save effort. Because I mean, I think like we talked about in the news for the last 18 months, truck parking. Definitely believe there's a shortage in truck parking, but I also think that understanding when parking is available, where it's available would be super helpful. And there's a lot of people that are doing stuff in that space. And there's a lot of help I think we can still provide with what we know, because since we'll know where people will be and when they'll be there. And so there's just a lot of stuff that's going to be happening in that part of the industry. And that's the world we're going to be jumping into as well, just because, like you said, to go from Chicago to Atlanta, there's a lot of decision points. I mean, it sounds pretty standard to a person that's in a car driving, but when you start thinking about rules, regulations, and life on the road, it's a whole different ballgame. You don't just book a hotel and drive until you're tired. You got a lot of other things to think about, and being able to help make those decisions for people, being able to foreshadow what's coming 6 hours from now when I've got to shut down is big. I think you're right. There is a lot that AI and technology is going to be able to do. And yes, we have some ideas that we are currently in process with on that we'll divulge at a later date.
Now, I just heard you touch on something that I was actually going to ask you about earlier. You said that you're going to be at a truck show in March. What events are you planning on being at this year where drivers can connect with you or companies can connect with you in order to see, what some of these features are in person and what that looks like?
Yeah, so we'll be at the Mass Truck Show in Louisville, Kentucky, March 21st to the 23rd. We'll be in the technology section of the West Wing, so anybody that's interested, feel free to swing by. We were there last year. We'll be in the same spot, so if you were there last year, remember us, you'll know right where we are. And so that's the one main show we're going to. And it really comes down to, we see a lot of owner-operators, a lot of small fleets, a lot of people looking for technology and things there. We've got our eye on maybe a few others. And if people say, hey, would love to see you there, I mean, we've got the ability to go in certain places. But at the moment, that's the one show we plan to be at right now.
Sounds good. And as far as looking at what's going on in the industry as a whole, what topics do you see that we're throwing out within the industry and that you're seeing in the news and that you're seeing specifically in the logistical world that you feel now are the most important to the drivers who are out there?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is always rates. I mean, you talk about volumes and things and understanding where rates are and kind of the economics that drive where we're at, and kind of being kind of in the valley of the peaks and valleys of rates, being much more on the broker shipper side than swinging toward the carriers like they did a few years ago. I think that's everybody's feeling is, how do I make more per mile? And that's kind of where we also come in. It's like, we completely understand. And just my personal side, when I was a carrier, it was always like, I always told my drivers that may be celebrating a high season, like, oh, I'm going to take some off. I've done really well. It's like, no, take your time off in a low season because it's coming. Like, there's just no way around it. This industry runs in like a 3 to 5 year cycle, it seems like. And to be able to work as hard as you can during the high season, so when the low season comes, because it's inevitable, you can then take time off and you're not missing anything, or you're not feeling like you're missing anything. And so I think that's where we are. It's like being able to show people, one, how to manage during these times, and then how to thrive still in these times because it's still possible, but then also how to plan for the future and knowing that it's going to swing back just like it has before.
Yeah, it's cyclical for sure. And that was kind of transitioning to a thought that I was having as you were talking. Do you have any success stories that you could share from FreightMate? Do you have any favorite stories or an individual case that you were like, wow, we made a real big difference?
I got literally a post on one of our social media sites, on Sunday afternoon. Someone that I had never talked to signed up with our platform, and not a ton of people sign up without at least reaching out, wanting a demo, wanting something. This DOT showed up out of nowhere and started running, used it for 3 days, and it worked so well for him. And he thought it was just so much better than his current way he was doing business that he felt compelled to write on social media posts, which was great to me because that's exactly what we wanted. Owner operator, looks like he's been in the business about 3 years. So he's been doing this. He understands the business. He's finding success. And he looked up the platform, trying to be better and better his business, gave us a shot without any knowledge outside of what's on our website, social media pages. And he already felt compelled to make sure to tell the world about how well it was working for him and how much more efficient he was, how much simpler his life was on the road. And I think that was good for us because, like I said, we talk to a lot of people so we can convey the value and they can see it, they can feel it, and they'll get started, and then they'll have it on a day-to-day basis. But to have somebody just sign up and then feel like they need to reach out and tell us how well it went, that's everything we could hope for. That was probably, like I said, one of the better reviews that I felt we've gotten is just one that's completely, we're not expecting to see from a customer that just found us. So that's great.
Yeah, it's your special sauce. Like, we're in business, you're always in the mode of what you're in, and you're focused on what is right in front of you. But then when you have that collateral amount of success come through, it's like, wow, we really were able to make a difference. For the drivers that are out there, what's a sales pitch if they wanted to go to like maybe their driver manager or someone and be like, hey, listen, what's a sales pitch that you would suggest that they give to try to get that year going for FreightMate?
If you're a driver and you're tired of text message, trying to track emails, chat messages, whatever it may be to your phone, this would be the call to action. They go like, hey, go look at this platform that'll put it in an app for me. I'll never have to search for anything. Every time I open it up, the current load I'm in will show up. I won't have to do anything. And then the value to you is every time I'm done, I'll send you all my documents right back through it, and it'll show up in your platform as complete. So you'll know that everything is done. You'll be able to track and trace and remove all the calls and all the annoyances that happen on a day-to-day basis. I think that's probably the biggest thing from a driver standpoint. If you're annoyed to an extent of how things are operating because it's a little bit 1990s or mid 2000s, that would be the biggest push that I would see from that standpoint.
That's typically how it all starts when you have to start making those changes in processes, is when somebody's upset or annoyed and they know that there's got to be a better way.
Yeah. Change can be difficult. I mean, I think this industry has shown just how things change. It can be a slow uptick. I mean, we've noticed it just in our customer base and things, how long it's taken to kind of get a rhythm going. And so it's just one of those things where when you really take the plunge, make the change, make the investment on being better, when you see the benefits of it, we have seen a very low churn rate in our customer base because they're seeing the benefits of what's going on.
Listen, you're showing your rings, you're showing your age if you're talking about fax machines, all right? Like if you're still using a fax, even the electronic fax machines that are out there, we use them for employment verifications. And you're like, hey, it's 2024. Why is the word fax even part of our vocabulary?
Yeah, exactly. It's funny, but yet, I mean, it's one of those things where we've noticed that people that have been doing it for a long time, I think there's some battle scars out there where we fought through it. We figured it out in our current operation, and to throw a wrench in it is scary at times. And we get that. But I think it's one of those things where, as we're in a world right now where technology, people always talk about how fast technology changed 15 years ago. And then you 10x that right now with all the AI things. I mean, if you sit on social media, you'll get 10 new AI solutions that come up every day to do everything in the world for you. And so I think not trying to find ways to just be better, not try and change, but just be better at what you're doing. Because I think the way we build our system is there's kind of a logical process that 95% of the industry is going to do, especially when we're focused on over the road and kind of at least metro to metro type non-last mile customers. I think the process is pretty similar across the board. You're going to get a rate confirmation. You're going to get that load information. You're going to send in a bill of lading or proof of delivery. You may send in some other details to get reimbursed for. I mean, the process is pretty standard across the board with mild changes, but that's how we built it, is to be pretty standard with the ability to modify as necessary. And so I think it's just one of those things where we're not trying to recreate everybody's operation. We're trying to take your current operation, automate all the manual out of it, and give you your time back so you can spend more time making money, doing things that may not be operational, calling customers, projects that you want to do, whatever it may be.
What's a differentiation between you and maybe a competitor of yours? What sets you guys above the rest of anybody that's out there?
I think it's really twofold. One, we're the most driver-focused solution out there that we have seen, can find, and we look all the time. I think it's one of those things where the app is built to be quick and easy. It's built to be, I can start tomorrow and it's up and running. And so it's very, very quick and easy. And the other thing is everything we do is based on automation. So you're not going to have to pay all this money for 100 features when you use 10. We're going to build it out so that every feature is useful. Everything you need is there. And as further features need to be there, we'll have those as well. But I think it's just one of those things where sometimes you get these platforms that tell you the 10 million things they do, which sounds great. And it's going to take you 4 years to get them all up and running, but you just don't use them all. And I think it's just one of those things where we really made the conscious decision. We're going to start operationally. We're going to start where everybody lives, day in and day out. If you're a trucking business, the truck is moving, driver's driving, paperwork is moving, information flows. That's where we'll start, and we'll build off of it. And we will build strategically with automation in mind to make it as seamless as possible. And then finally, everything you do on the web, you can do on your phone and vice versa. I had someone ask me the other day about how I was like, well, I'm going to transfer, the opportunity to a family member if I'm gone. If they have issues, what am I going to do? And it's like, you can just pull up your phone and just continue the process. There's no, I only can do this on the web, or I only can do this on the phone. If you're an admin, we have a different view to an extent for a driver just to make it simpler and quicker. But for an admin, you'll be able to invoice. You'll be able to send documents. You can dispatch. You can do everything you need to do on your phone. And that was something else that I wanted, is I didn't want to have a problem at 6:30 at night while I'm trying to have dinner with my family and I got to go find internet and go home and get my computer or carry it around in the car. And so that's where a lot of that's built. So everything we do is, okay, how does the driver work? And then how will this work on the phone? Because once again, the organizational side and the website is easy. That's the part that you'll see a ton of people are doing. But being able to do it multifaceted and simple for everybody, that's the key.
Jeff, for any drivers that are out there listening, or any potential clients for you that are out there listening who want to connect with you, where is it that they can find you?
Yeah, so our website is freightmateapp.com. Once again, this whole thing was born out of being a mobile app. So that's where our domain lives. So freightmateapp.com. I mean, you can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, X, whatever it may be. We're on all social media platforms, so you can connect with us there and reach out in any way. And then, as I say, we're always an open book and we're always available just for information and conversation. So, I mean, our corporate number, just it'll funnel right in, is 470-660-5810. So people can reach out directly there or email us at info@freightmateapp.com. And that'll also filter right into us and we can take care of it there.
This is super cool. One of the things that we like to do at Drive, people might think that we're getting paid to have you on this episode or whatever like that, but there's nothing here that we wouldn't want to do for our own people. We like to promote products and things that would be better value for anybody in the trucking industry overall. Jeff, we appreciate your time and listening to some of the stuff on here. Our people can find you on this location or at the truck show that you're going to be going to. Is it the Mid-America Truck Show?
Yep.
That's going to be coming up this year. Guys, go see him at the Mid-America Truck Show. Hopefully we get you back on sometime, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do an update in the coming months once we have a lot of these new things and new partnerships out there that we can feel free to discuss.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Jeff.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm Zac Ellis, and thanks for listening to Drive. To learn more, check out our show notes and leave us a message at thetruckdrive.com.